Fans, welcome to Sports Surge, your new volunteer time sports talk show. We're going to be covering some things tonight that include Cougar football, Cougar golf, we're talking about Cougar volleyball. But we're going to start out. We had the big win Friday night against Coffee County. And Daniel and I did the game, and John was on the sideline. I'm going to start out with John from the sideline perspective. And I know you weren't as close as normal because of the COVID and the way we had to maneuver on the sideline. What was the feeling on the sideline Friday night?
Well, I mean, it was basically your typical Cougar sideline on Friday when things are going well. Of course, there's always that little, a few mistakes you're going to have. You had some penalties. It's the first game. You've not had much practice. Daniel can tell you about that. I mean, he practiced a lot, but that first game, Daniel, you're going to have those penalties. Coaches, players, they argue back and forth on the sideline, but you're all a family when the game's over.
Yeah. When you come into a game, your first game of the season, you're looking for a few things. You're looking for who's the leadership of the team. That's something that, last year they kind of already had that idea coming in, who was going to be the leaders of the team. They had spring ball last year. They had the scrimmages leading up to the season. This year there was none of that due to the coronavirus, and it messes with everything. At one point during the game, I pointed out to Pat, I looked down and I seen Hunter down on the sideline with one of his linemen. Hunter's only a junior this year, correct? He's a junior this year. And he's showing those steps of leadership of, hey, this is my team, and that was encouraging to see. And I'm sure Coach Justin Price was enthused to see that kind of relationship already forming.
There's some good leadership on the team. Mikhail Shepard is senior. He's a very vocal leader. Big Jaden White. I mean, if you're down on the sideline like I am and after plays, Jaden's a guy, he reminds me of Mike Rhodes in that regard. Mike Rhodes used to keep you hyped up. If you were down on the knee, if you were sulking, Big Mike would come over there and get in your face. You didn't say no to Big Mike.
Yeah, it's,
Jaden White does that now.
Absolutely. And being a lineman, he takes pride in it. You can look at Jaden and tell that he takes pride in being a lineman. He is the anchor of that line, offensively. He is the anchor of that line. And it's always good to have somebody that'll step up and say, hey, let's go next level right here. We need this. And I think in the second quarter, not to jump too far ahead, but the first quarter was kind of slow for Campbell County offensively, just figuring everything out, getting the cobwebs worked out. And then in the second quarter, I think we've seen kind of like a resummation of last year from Hunter White, from CJ. We had a few new people come on the scene with Devin Jones came on the scene. He had a big breakout game this last game as well. It's just, it was good to see that second quarter. You could tell that the leadership on the team stepped up. And that's not necessarily the coaches saying, hey, you're doing awful. That's players saying, all right, it's time for some accountability here. It's my time to step up.
Of course, we mentioned C.J. Allen. He very much an anchor of this team on both sides of the ball. Obviously, offensively, he had over 100 yards combined rushing and receiving. But his really big play of the game was when he picked that ball off for the touchdown.
Honestly, CJ had two of those because he had an interception deep in Cotton County territory that set Campbell County up for just, a very short field touchdown there in the second quarter.
Yeah, it was, CJ is one of those players, and I was talking with Pat a little bit about this. He's one of those players that, you've got people that are just talented, but then you got the player they've got that it factor, where you don't really know exactly what it is, but they've got it. And CJ's just there. He has the capability to do anything on the football field.
And from a coaching standpoint, you love to see that, but it's a very organic thing. There's not really a way to improve it or coach that up. But when you see that, you've got somebody. You've got somebody that's going to take it to that next level without you necessarily having to say, you need to bump up your game. CJ, like I mentioned it during the game, I followed him all offseason on his social media. And his time in the gym has done him well.
CJ's also another one of those guys, he's leading. Something goes wrong, CJ's get your head up, we're going to go out here and make it right. He's fired up. And that junior class came out of Jacksboro and some out will follow, but especially those Jacksboro kids with a lot of success in their career.
And that's a major shout out to Coach Peel as well up at Jellicoe now. You know, I had the privilege of, when I coached at Jacksboro years ago, Coach Peel was there, and it was awesome just to see that the way that relationship formed. He's just got that mentality of being able to relate to players, and it's good to see that that's carried on because these players are so tight.
Yeah, Brent Peel, he has one of those things, sort of like we talked about with CJ, that it factor. There's certain coaches that can drag the best out of any player at any time. And you know, I dealt with it for years with Johnny Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
And now I watched Peel do it, and I said, you can't pay enough for that kind of coach.
Well, those kids, Desmond Gilbert's another guy. He works hard in the off season. He works hard during the season. He's focused and he's driven. You see that showing up. And as a freshman, he looked a little bit, off. Now, you're going to look that way as a freshman in high school. He got better last year. He had a big sack in the game tonight. Game Friday night. Will Lester stepped up and just made tackle after tackle after tackle by that middle linebacker spot.
I feel like Will really benefited from that last game of the prior season where he actually got to step in against a very good West team.
Yeah, West was a great team last year, and I'm assuming they're probably going to be great again this year. But
I'll say another guy, Karan Williams. Karan, he wants the ball. And he told Coach Price during the game, he said, Coach, you got to throw me the ball. Throw me the football. Give me the ball. 2 plays later, they throw Karan the football. He catches it out in the flat, makes 3 guys miss, gets 15 yards. The first down.
yeah, and that's Karan. I mean, last year he did great things, and I'm expecting more of that this year. Karan's got the capability to be an all-region player, all-district player. He's got it.
Oh, yeah, Karan's very athletic. And I'll give a shout out to your guys, that big offensive line. I mean, Carson Meade, great job. Ben Conrad was out, and Ben Conrad's maybe the best tackle on the team. He's out. No sacks on Hunter White.
Yeah.
Not a lot of pressure. New center this year with Ben Snodderly.
Ross.
Ross Snodderly?
No, wait.
It's not Ross.
Ross is today.
Joseph Snodderly.
Ross is today.
I knew I would get there eventually. Joseph Snodderly. He took over as center from Brendan Burge, who Brendan last year that I can remember did not have a single bad snap, which is still one of the most impressive feats I've ever seen out of a center. There was no bad snaps. It was rainy. The ball was wet. That's hard.
It's very difficult. You know, I played center for years, then I got moved to left tackle. And me personally, I hated playing center when the ball was wet. I hated it because you got to think the entire play starts with you. Nothing happens if the center don't have a good grip on the ball and that ball just rolls back to the quarterback.
I mean, you're a product of that Price-Gillum system. The Price system runs up here. It's shotgun snaps. Maybe you're not.
It's go, go,
You're
go.
not just snapping the ball, the 2 feet. You're snapping the ball shotgun style every snap. So you've got to have a perfect snap.
I mean, you go back to the Jacksboro days. It was pretty much a shotgun snap then, if I remember.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't there your last year. But
No, so I was there. My 6th grade year was Coach Ellison. 7th grade year was Coach Jesse. 8th grade we had Coach Bruce.
right, and of course, you worked with some coaches there. You look, Coach Ellison, wide receiver coach at Oak Ridge, Coach Jesse, offensive coordinator at Anderson County, and what can you say about Coach Bruce?
He's Coach Bruce.
Yeah. So I mean, you've been through a lot of systems,
I've been through
and
several.
you know how important that center position is.
Mhm.
And no matter what the system is, because like you said, it is the beginning of every play.
Now that we've rolled through the offensive line, you got to mention the defensive line. And there's one guy you have to mention that's the defensive line before anybody else, even though the other guys played well.
Blake
My
Taylor.
gosh, Blake Taylor.
Blake Taylor. I told Pat, we were doing our pregame show, and I told Pat, I said, Blake's gained a little bit of weight this offseason. He's up to like 285 now. I was like, is he going to lose his step? I asked Pat, I said, is he going to lose his step? We were like 5 plays into the game, Blake's got a sack already. And I'm like, no, he's good. We're back to Blake. And I mentioned to Pat about the fundamentals as well. Has Blake had the opportunity to learn better fundamentals? And from what I've seen, he's learned more fundamentals of football.
You mentioned that you played it, and it's usually your best guy out there because most quarterbacks are right-handed, and that's the left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Blake Taylor's by that left tackle before he knows what's going on.
Yeah, and that's difficult. It's really difficult. As being that, they call it the weak side tackle. It's usually the quarterback's backside is the weak side tackle.
You got to protect that backside.
You got to protect the backside because if the quarterback takes a blindside hit, it's bad news. And, you know, like you said, that's always, you want your best offensive lineman to be at left tackle and center. And Blake Taylor has just made some left tackles look like statues, like they're just standing still.
Go back and watch our videos on our Volunteer Times webpage. It'll be down from this, or you can just type in Cougar Football in the search bar at the top and find it very easily. And just watch Blake Taylor and his sacks. Pretty much any of his pressure, he comes right off that left side, his right side, but over the left side of the line. And they line Blake up against the best guy on the team, and he beats him. And he
Beats him consistently.
He's a consistently. He came out of the rain, they warmed up, he said, they can't stop me.
No, I mean, you can't. And don't take that as Blake being arrogant or cocky.
I mean,
he's
you
just
you
football.
gotta be confident.
You know, as a linebacker.
Yeah, it's just football.
You want your guy to know he can beat that other guy.
I can remember when I would line up against somebody, if I had somebody that I knew that I was better than, I'd let them know real quick. Hey, I'm better than you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the talk on the line is big.
Yeah. And I think Blake's got that aspect to him, you know, and that also plays into the mental side of football a little bit as well. You know, football's not just what everybody makes it out to be. It's not just hit, and that's it. We all know that's not football. There is so much more going on mentally that's going through a player's brain nonstop. And as an offensive defensive lineman, I honestly think that's where most of your we'll say big chatter comes from.
And we're going to talk about another kid that's very big to the team in a different way. That's Thomas Johnson.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thomas took over punting this year. They didn't let him punt last year very much. I'm not sure what the reason was for that. The Coach Price, they seem to like to punt the ball short or punt it out of bounds. They don't want to take a risk on kickoff coverage. And Thomas is, he can boom those punts down the field. So I guess this year they're more confident in their coverage team since they're letting him punt it as deep as he can.
And he also had the missed extra point in the game. That's not a killer in high school the way it can be on the other levels of football. And I was glad to see that he did not lose confidence. He came out and kicked a field goal.
Well, I'll say this, I'm one of those, and I was watching the playback, because I can't watch the game, obviously, while I'm down the sideline covering it. I was watching the playback, and Daniel noted on his first missed extra point, before he ever actually kicked the ball, he said, oh, the snap wobbled.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this on that. Michael Brown was a 4-year starter, and he was all district, and basically was named the best deep snapper in the district last season. So you get a new deep snapper, and that's a hard position to play.
Yeah,
Because you're not the regular center at that point.
No, and surprisingly to me now, there's colleges that are signing long snappers.
Oh, absolutely.
I never knew that, and I played college ball. I never knew that, hey, they can get a scholarship for this. And there's a kid out of Union County right now that signed one with Maryville.
If you get that mentality, at best you never know the deep snapper's name. But when things go wrong with the deep snapper, you start missing those field goals, start missing those extra points, it becomes a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
So that may have been a little bit of what happened to Thomas on his missed extra points. It's a new guy out there. And he did pretty well. He got the he made a field goal, which is rare in the Price area. There's probably been less than 6 field goals in the entire Price area. So they've got confidence in Thomas to run out there and kick the ball.
I mean, I would have 100% confidence in Thomas after what he did last year versus Carter, excuse me.
And now that you brought up Carter, let's shift our focus a little bit to Friday night. The Hornets of Carter come to town. Home opener. There's going to be a little bit, from what I understand, a difference in the line. My understanding is we've got some injuries and that we're going to have Blake Taylor playing offensive line and freshman Storm Webb playing offensive line this week.
You hate to hear that there's ever injuries, especially on the line, because Ben Conrad's already been out the first game. And, Justin Price was raved to me about Ben Conrad last year and the year before, but he's been banged up. But when he's playing, he's another guy. So you don't know, you're an offensive lineman. You don't get the glory when you're an offensive lineman. You only notice offensive linemen when we're talking about when Blake Taylor's running back.
Mm-hmm.
But when the offensive lineman's doing his job 99% of the time, it's not noticed by most people watching the game because you're watching the ball, you follow the ball, the play works. But football is so much a team sport, you have to have all 11 players doing their thing. Even if it's a receiver who knows he's not going to catch the ball, his job is to either make the team think he's going to catch the ball, or that way you don't break off your route, you don't start walking, or to block. But those offensive linemen have got to be in sync. And already your best guy out, and then maybe we're getting one or two more new guys. And I'll say this too. Carter lost to Ray County 42-6 last year. Ray County went 9-3. They're the Chattanooga area power. Carter, and Ray County went to overtime Friday night. And I believe Ray County won 21-14, but it was at Ray County.
Carter's one of those scary teams. I can remember playing Carter back when I was at AC, and it was a 50-50. I mean, they've got really good teams, and then they all have off years. But last year when Campbell County went in, I thought last year's Campbell County team was a 7-3 team. I mean, that's what I honestly went in thinking, 6-4, 7-3. And I thought Carter, they're going to be a 2-8 team. This should be an easy game for Campbell County. Go in, establish what we need to do, and take care of business. After watching the game last year, Carter has a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. I know that their quarterback, he's a speedster. Last year, I'm sure he rushed for over 100 yards easily against Campbell County. Their quarterback was on the go the whole game.
Campbell County's been vulnerable with that at times. The Gibbs game last year, their quarterback, I think he had over 200 yards rushing.
Yeah, and
Gibbs is a different kind of offense.
I was talking to Pat during the game, and not to get way too technical, but to get a little bit technical, we love Blake Taylor, love our defensive ends, love our defensive linemen. But in football, there's a thing called a ledge that you don't want your defensive lineman to go over. And our defensive line has a tendency to go over that ledge and get too far into the backfield. And that might sound crazy to some of our viewers about getting too far back into the backfield, but it's a real thing because you lose track of the ball.
I mean, if you've ran a couple of steps past the ball, you went too far.
And there's almost no recovery.
The big thing about teaching your quarterback to step up in the pocket. That's what that means. Is you get those defensive ends that collapse around you, you have to step forward, and once the defensive ends are behind you, it's hard for them to recover in time for you to get the ball out. Blake, as we pointed out, Blake is full on, he's a freight train coming. And I remember the play you're talking about.
Yeah.
He ran about 2 or 3 steps past the quarterback and just stepped up in the pocket, and it's just too late to recover at that point.
Yeah, and that's all fundamentals. Like I was saying, that's a teachable thing. You can teach them, hey, you go 3 yards, and you get east and west, not north and south.
Just, like I said, we don't know about Carter. There's no film on Carter for us. Coaches are finally going to get film this week, and Justin Price pointed that out in his post-game speech. He said, now we have film. We have film on ourselves, and we'll have some film on Carter. So we'll know what to look for.
And that's another thing, if you're not a football person, if you've never played, you've never coached, it's hard to understand the importance of that film. But even when I coached on the middle school level, we would spend hours breaking down those films. What we needed to fix, what we needed to look for the next game, who's strong on that team, where's their weak spot. It's a big part of it. It's part of that middle part. I mean, you can remember back in the day, Ethan Jeffers sitting there with a pad, watching huddle.
Ethan watched huddle 24 hours a day. And I've never seen a kid into it that much. And it's just a big. Hunter White is also that way. Hunter White studies the game. And here's what, in my opinion, we're going to need this week. More C.J. Allen running the ball. I know the coach likes to throw it around. I don't blame him because it works most of the time. C.J.'s just too good not to let him run the ball more. That maybe you get those new offensive linemen some confidence. Maybe they're not having to protect the quarterback for 3, 4, 5 seconds sometimes while he's on rollouts. And it's a lot easier to block if you're just going to smash the guy in front of him.
I say run screens. If I was the offensive coordinator and I've got 2 new linemen coming in, you can ask Pat. A screen play is the easiest thing for a lineman to do. You've got 1 second, let them go, and go downfield and get whoever you need to get. And Campbell County is really good at running tunnel screens. I know we ran a couple this past week with CJ, and I think Devin caught one in McCall. So,
All right. Now that we talked about this, shift focus again just a little bit. Let's talk about Cougar golf for a minute.
I mean, you got to give it, credit to Coach Kane and that junior class, especially Jack Leach,
Bates,
David Bates,
Garrett Medley,
Garrett, and then Donovan
Hansick.
Hansick is rising too. Trevor Sharp's a steady senior. On the girls' side, you have Sadie Cox leading the way, Molly Fields, and Bailey McCamey. And they're just finished playing as we're speaking. We went out to the golf match earlier, but because of other Cougar sports, we weren't able to stay for all of them, so we don't know if they won tonight. So far, they've not lost a match, and Jack Leach is not, as an individual, been the top scorer. And he's well, the low scorer, I should say, but he's not won individually each match as well. So the Cougar golf is just rolling. I mean, that's all you can say about it. And you saw this coming from when they went undefeated at Jacksboro a couple of years ago and won the state level tournament. So, I mean, just great golf out of those guys and the ladies.
And the other sports have cranked up too. Soccer, I think, is 1-1 right now.
Soccer got a big 9-0 win over Northview, and they lost a game to Cumberland Gap earlier.
Cumberland Gap's a long-running soccer program. They've had it when I was coaching up there, and that's been years ago.
Volleyball got a big win over Powell. Actually, just before we take this, we were at the volleyball match. 5 sets. Volleyball won last night as well. They lost their first match to Oak Ridge, but Oak Ridge is the power in East Tennessee, basically, at this level of volleyball, or one of the powers, along with a couple of schools in Knoxville and area. But, when it works, it just keeps doing it year after year.
Absolutely, and credit to the Wormsleys. It would have been really easy to walk away after Destiny graduated. But they've stuck with that team. They like what they've built. And I think Cougar Volleyball is going to be a challenger to Oak Ridge every year from here on in.
Middle school, you saw Jacksboro right now. Cody Parker's finally got a lot of 8th graders on his team. And man, Jacksboro was ahead 56-0 at halftime.
Landon Hensley was 10 for 10 through the air.
And Eagleton's a Blount County school in the, I believe they may feel the Alcoa.
They feed Heritage.
They feed Heritage.
I knew they were in that area, so.
But they also feed Alcoa. Because that's
there's been people that they went to Alcoa, Maryville, Heritage. It's just kind of a
it was
one
complete domination. And they are running the Cougar Air Raid. Josh Hensley, the quarterback for them this year. He's a smaller guy, but he's getting bigger. But he was 10 for 10 for around 170 yards.
And this is his second year as a starter.
He started as a 7th grader. I mean, he was great on just any pass you see the Cougars throw on Friday nights. The Eagles are running it on Thursday nights. They're using the same terminology and everything else. Josh Parker, Cody Parker coached at Campbell County with the process for several years, so he knows the terminology. And he told us, he said, even last year, he scheduled pretty good teams. He scheduled Maryland and other teams. He said, we might take our lumps this year, but these kids are going to learn how to run prize football. So when they step on campus at middle school, they're not going to be 1 inch behind anybody in terminology. When they walk in, if Coach Price calls a play, they're going to know what that play is. And it's working. 56 points in the first half. So
that's a really good score line. I can speak to the Price system just a little bit. I played under that system when Matt and Justin came to AC. I think it was my junior year, 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. And it was still an air raid system, but we ran the ball a whole lot more back then because of the head coach we had at the time. And just to see the evolution of what Matt and Justin have done up at Campbell County, I'm just going to give a shout out to Campbell County football in general. It's for somebody that didn't go to school here, but kept up with everything that's kind of going on here, it's awesome to see the transformation that Matt and Justin have brought and just the winning attitude that's at Campbell County now.
It helps when it builds in the middle school levels, like as you talked about Coach Peel earlier. And LaValle's got a new coach. He went to AC. I don't know if you know him or not. He's probably a little bit after your time. He's a young guy.
Yeah, I know a little bit of him, not too much. Truth be told, he probably played for me at Norris if I got a chance to look at him, but I've not spent too much time.
He's in the situation that Cody Parker was in last year. He's only got a couple of 8th graders, a lot of 7th graders. They took a loss to Horse Manor, Horse Manor was a good team last year, and
I talked to one of Union County's coaches, and Horace Manor is still going to be a good team this year.
So, I mean, he'll take his lumps this year. It's just the nature of middle school football, or even high school to some extent. You turn over those big 8th grade classes, and unfortunately for a while, they only had 2 8th graders last year and 4 this year. That's the state that LaValle's team was in before they got this new coach. It's just they didn't have participation like they needed to have. But I think LaValle will get on track, and that's really going to aid further the high school's progress of getting things more, players that are ready to come as freshmen.
I would like to see the Jacksboro follow that Egg Bowl type thing back what it was when Pat was coaching me many years ago back at Jacksboro. I can remember that was
A big deal.
It was a big deal. It was a fight every game.
It's still quite the rivalry, but it's very one-sided in Jacksboro's favor on the scoreboard right now.
But that can always change.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's a quick change in middle school if you just get participation. And LaFallet's a big school. Their coaches now, he teaches in LaFalle. He can walk the halls. He can get the kids out. He's a very enthusiastic guy, very nice man. So I think things are going to work out well for LaFalle.
All right, fans, I think we're going to wrap this up for tonight. I want to thank you all for tuning in to our first episode of Sports Surge. Now, going forward, we're going to have coaches and players interviews. We might do a little football fundamentals. Might shift the camera over, and you'll actually get to see in practice some of the stuff we talk about. But we thank you all for watching tonight, and we'll be back with you all next week.